Okay, here the interesting thing about this sikha is that first of all, the Rebbe brings in over here an amazing. Here's the pieces from it, if you want it. The pieces. We know in the Welt they have they talk about the Bein HaMetzorim and they connect it with the Parshas, and everything has like a more of a negative type of view. And the beginning of the Sikha, the Rebbe is going to explain how there are certain negative things in the Parshas of Matos Masei which are connected because Bein HaMetzorim, it's a sad time, so it has to do very well with Matos Masei. But of course, the Rebbe's approach is not that way. So after bringing in those views, which is very interesting because a lot of times the Rebbe goes l'chatchila, but he doesn't bring in those things. This time he's going to bring in the different things, and then he's going to say, but really, the Pnimius, it's about the Pnimius idea of Bein HaMetzorim, because the real idea of Bein HaMetzorim is to bring the Geula. And therefore, in Matos Masei is hinted also the avodah that we have to bring the Geula, and that's why it's read now in Bein HaMetzorim. Also, the Rebbe is going to connect it that this year, with this Kviyas, the Rebbe's Sikha, this Likud, has to do with the Kviyas just like this year, where Shavasar B'Tammuz was Parshas Bolak on Shabbos. Then we had Pinchas. Then we have Matos Masei Mechubarim. Then you have Shabbos as Tisha B'Av Parshas Dvarim, which in other years you can have like 3 Parshas the whole 3 weeks. You'll have Pinchas, you'll have Matos, and you'll Matos Masei, and you'll have Dvarim. Here you have Pinchas and Bolak, and the Rebbe is going to make a big deal about that as well. We're going to skip the koteret. Duber kama pomim, far pomim rabis al divrei hashalom, sheyesh kesher ben parshas ha'torah lo ben hazman b'shana shebayin nikrois min al-modis. Kach kemuvan, gam b'kesher le parshas Matos Masei ha-nikrois tamid b'mein ben ha-mitzarim, v'yesh lam kesher miyuchad l'toichin yomim el. So the Rebbe says what this is. First of all, there's a simple approach. The Rebbe also brings in that even Parshas Pinchas has a connection. We also have certain things in the Ha'aras. He brings down where additional connection in Ha'ara 3. The Parshas Matos, Masker Moishel b'nei God v'Ruven, as Chet HaMeraglim, shebegloloi, nishtal b'nei Yisrael b'midbar arbaim shana. It's an interesting thing. The fact that the Yidden had to remain 40 years in the Midbar, that's like the idea that we're sent into Golus for a long time. And also we know the idea of the Lishtas Begolus, the Golus began with Bein HaMetzorim. And then again, in footnote number 5, he says, and Tisha B'Av was the actual date of the Chet HaMeraglim. So it's connected, the parsha of what we're learning, with the 3 weeks. Etchilos Masei Mesupar al Masois. Sheka'amr Memedrash, Amle HaKadosh Baruch Hu LeMoshe, Mana Lahem Kol HaMekoymes Heichen Hichisuni. It's interesting that what did he show them? Here, there's more copies. All the places where the Yidden made Hashem angry. Not where the Yidden did good things. In other words, again, it has to do with the idea of Bein HaMetzorim. Hasibah Bein HaMetzorim LaGolus is all comes from the different things that we do, not the way it's supposed to be. At the end of Parshas Masei, it talks about Arim Miklat, which is again, what is Arim Miklat? It's also Golus. Arim Miklat is an individual Golus. The person himself goes into Golus. Ha-Golus, ha-Bab, be'ikvus, harigas nefesh b'shgaga. And al-Pichsidis, the idea of harigas nefesh b'shgaga is every Aveda is called that we are chas v'sholem taking out blood. We are shoifach dam adam ha'elyon. So it's also like the idea of harigas nefesh. Ukif shemaz b'rat shalom she'inyonim she'aleim meduber parshas Matos Chetei, Nedarim, Ushvua, Hapoigim B'Neshama, V'Chet Retzach, Hapoigim B'Guf, She'olav Medubar Parshas Masei, Garmu L'Churm B'Ter Mikdashes Kezbeir Bar Chava. So this is what the Shalah connects. So up till now, what we have is the negative aspect of Bein HaMetzorim is connected and is seen in the negative things that we found in Parshas Matos Masei. But the Rebbe is going to turn it around and show, first of all, there is a positive message in Bein HaMetzarim. The Bein HaMetzarim is not about staying and being in Golus, but Bein HaMetzarim is to be able to go out of Golus. And the Parshas Matos Masei is also about going into Golus to be able to reach higher. Yes, Leimer Shakeshish bein Parshas Eil lebein HaMetzarim einan rak inen HaGolus haramas behen ala adrabim matan koyach la'avoida shebiyimei bein HaMetzarim li shem yitzia min HaGolus. The question is, why? Because of Shabbos. When are the Parshas mainly read? They're read on Shabbos. And Shabbos is the idea of we're turning over, we're being mahapich, the avelus of the Bein HaMetzarim to Inyanim of Simcha being maramas on the Gula. Hezbollah kachu kishem shu pashtas. Hare ein cholim klal dine avelus shali mei Bein HaMetzarim b'Shabbos. Share ein eitzav ba ulahepech mitzvah la'angay v'chulu. Umekan royim she Shabbos einena nivgemes al yidei Inyanei Bein HaMetzarim. Bein HaMetzarim. Kach v'yoyser makachim advorim b'pnimias. כהסבר צמח צדק שהשבוסה של בין המצרים הם בבחינס מקדים רפואה למכה, תרופה מוקדמת לעניין בין המצרים. Shabbos, we know, has to do with Yom Shekuli Shabbos and Menucha L'chai Elamim. So in other words, Shabbos is an idea of Geula that's to be found in middle of Bein HaMetzarim that we're marking Golus. So that means the problems of Bein HaMetzarim are being healed, are being given the medicine on Shabbos, because Shabbos is already the idea of the Geula. It's an interesting thing that Rebbe a lot of times brings down from his father, Reb Leivik. He was a Rav in Yekaterinoslav, and there was someone that used to walk around the whole time with slippers, for whatever reason it was. And he was once an oval, and he asked a shaila from Reb Leivik if he can wear his slippers on Shabbos when he's in the middle of Avelis. So Reb Leivik told him, no, you can't, because people might come to think that you're wearing the slippers on Shabbos because of Avelis. So therefore, you have to go out of your way to show that you're not doing it because of Avelis. The same thing that Rebbe says, Bechlal. The Shabbosim during the 3 weeks, the Shabbos, Chazon, Shabbos of Tisha B'Av, Shabbos during the 9 days, all these times we have to be moisiv b'simcha, the Rebbe says, because we shouldn't, chas v'sholom, look like we are doing something of Avelis. Kach muven l'gabe parshas ha'Torah on the Kreuz b'zban hazeh, shekivin shetzim b'mishpat tipada v'shaveh b'tzdaka. So how are they being redeemed? This is actually the last pasuk of the Torah of Shabbos Chazon, the Shabbos before Tisha B'Av. This year it's the Shabbos of Tisha B'Av. Ubemishpat kan hakavon l'Torah. How do we take the Yidden out of Golus? Through Torah. Hare muvon shaparshas hanikrois v'nolmodas bezman hazeh im bebchinas refuah and magdim refuah l'makas hagolus. Kloimar hayra v'chizuk la'avoida b'mei bein hamitzarim hamivia liyiyu l'sasnu l'simcha l'mayadim toivim. And this is the approach of the Rebbe. And again, this is like, you don't see this anywhere else. Even I would say, even in the Mamorim and Sichos of the Friedrich Rebbeim, the Rebbeim before the Rebbe, but definitely not outside of Chassidus Chabad, where the whole message and the whole push and the whole emphasis of Bein HaMetzarim is, how can I do something that's going to undo Bein HaMetzarim? Everybody is so wrapped up in the technicalities, what I can do, what I can't do, being sad, how much you have to be sad, is this considered sad, is this considered too much sad, that we lose track of the big picture. The Rebbe is always aiming for that big picture, that the whole purpose of Bein HaMetzarim is to bring about the Geula. He says, Kol prati ha'Torah is base. Kol prati ha'Torah mediyakim b'yoyser, ubevada yoyser minyonei ha'olam sheyesh lehem hashgacha pratis. If you say everything in this world is hashgacha pratis, how much more so in yonim that come out in Torah? Lefichach muvan shakim sheparshas matos masei mechubaris yesh bekach ha'ira unesinas koyach miyuchedes la'avoida shel bein hametzarim. It's very interesting. The Rebbe is going to go off a little bit over here on a little bit of a side idea. He's going to go off a little bit on a tangent. And he's going to speak about that when two parshas are joined together, so they become like one parsha. And the Rebbe's going to spend the next few paragraphs, the next few sifim, talking just about this concept without even talking about Matos Masei or talking about Bein HaMetzorim, just to bring this idea home. העניין כפשוטי הוא, בשונים שבהם מטות ומסי נפרדות, נקרוס ונלמדות ובין המצרים, שלוש פרשס בלבד. You have Matos, you have Masei udvarim. That's the 3 weeks. That's going to be the parshas of the 3 Shabbosim in the 3 weeks. Ve'ilu kasher Matos u'Masei mechubaros noisefes limei bein hamitzarim parsha b'Torah parshas Pinchas. Ubemikrim mesuyamim, like our year, gam parshas Balak hanikras b'yom shivasar b'Tammuz harishon bein hamitzarim. V'chiven shebezman zeh yesh tosefes l'Torah moving sheniten b'emtzazos koyach chazak v'rav yosel l'ripuy inyane bein hamitzarim. We said before that the way how we are going to do tziyah is going to be tipada. That's through mishpat. That's through Torah. So when we have a situation in bein hamitzarim where we have built into the calendar, built into the luach, you have more Torah. So therefore, the Eibishter is giving us more koyach to be able to have the tziyah in tipada. Im zois muvan shanesinas koyach einana kshura rak lo yisafa b'toyram elot l'tziruf ha'iroz shal parshas Matos u'Masei b'yachad. So it's not just the fact, okay, we're learning more Torah, which is something that Rebbe pushed a lot, that during the 3 weeks, and especially during the 9 days, we should add both in Torah, tzim b'mishpat, and we should add in tzedakah, like it says v'shaveh b'tzedakah. That's b'chlal, any part of Torah. But the fact that these parshas come out in the 3 weeks, the Rebbe says, so that means there's something about the parshas, and especially that Matos and Masei are mechuber to teach us special lessons and an asinas koyach for overcoming the idea of the 3 weeks. Kedei lahavin zois yesh lahasber tchilam shakasher shteish parshas mechubaros b'Shabbos mesiyames ein hakavonam shenikros b'Shabbos achas shtei parshas. Ella she's chabruson yetzeres mehen parsha achas. And the Rebbe in the footnote says that we call it not parshiyos Matos Masei, but we call it parshas Matos Masei, because one parsha. So it says haychacha lekach ein koyrin kol parsha benifred bezman acher b'Shabbos. What you could do is, let's say, read Matos in the morning and Masei by mincha. And there's actually, he brings down that there's a halacha, if you read only one parsha by a Shabbos that's a mechuber, and you forgot, and you didn't realize till after Musaf, so then after Musaf you'll read the second parsha. But Lepoyo, that's not the normal way of doing it. The normal way of doing it is we read it together. And even more so, how do we read it together? We combine the aliyahs. We don't read Matos up to one aliyah, and then start a new aliyah with Masei, but we combine. V'oid kasher koyrin oisem biyachad nasis chalukas hakriya l'shiva kruyim v'chei chalukas haparshas l'tzorich limud shiur yichitas mech shashavua. We read together. We learned both in one day. We learned part of the end of Matos and the beginning of Masei. Ba'oifin she'ein nikara hefsek b'neim. We don't say, let's say, arba kruyim ba'achas mehem or shloisha ba'acheres or kadoim. We don't divide it. Eloimdim v'koyrim kirevi'i et soifa shal parsha rishona biyachad im ascholos hashniya ubrachas shelifnei akriya ulacharea nemoris al psukim mishtei aparshas gam yachad. So you have when the one that gets the aliyah on Revi is making one bracha on 2 separate parshas. Why? Because they're not separate parshas anymore. They're considered one parsha. L'chure, hein be'etzem shtei parshas nefrodes, ki b'shonim acheres, v'yotzorech l'kvoya b'neim hefsek b'shas kriyosam, gam kasher nekrois b'yachad. So why don't we make some type of hefsek? Ach zoya chochel lekach, shakasher shtei parshas mechubares, hein nases leparsha achas, keloimar. Lamroi shekolachs mehem, yesh toichen atzmoi. The meaning and the ideas of every parsha is unique to that parsha, and that's why every parsha has a separate name. And the Rebbe many sichos explains the parsha is called this and this name because the entire idea of this parsha is Bereshis. The entire idea of this parsha is Noach. Even though the Rebbe a lot of times points out At the end of Parshas Noach, it's talking about Avram already. So maybe the Avram Parsha should have been in Lech Lecha. And the end of Parshas Bereshis starts talking already about Noach. So the Rebbe shows in Sichos, for example, that the part that talks about Noach in Parshas Bereshis goes under the idea of Bereshis. And the part that has to do with Avram that talks about in Parshas Noach has to do with the idea of Noach. So the same thing over here. Every single name of a parsha, Matos and Masei, has its own idea. And despite that, when it's a mechuber, we put it together. There's 53 parshas. Matos and Masei are two separate ones of those 53. The cholza is kasher nekrois biyachad in hoifchis leparsha achaz. So now the Rebbe brings it back to our situation. V'yesh lahavim binyaneinu l'chura ein shum kesher men parshas Matos l'masei shaloi kemispar parshas acheres she'achas men ba kehemshech bezman oy betoichen l'kedemes. Let's say Parshas Chukas Bolok. There's a connection between the end of Chukas and the end of Chukas and the beginning of Bolok. There's a connection between other parshas. Tazria Metzoida, the Rebbe says. It's talking about the end of the end of Tazria. It talks about Saras, and he continues with Metzoida, the beginning of Metzoida. But Matos Masei, the Rebbe is going to say, is completely separate concepts. They don't belong together. They really don't fit together. Parshas Matos Mesaperes al Tzivuyim Shetzivu V'Amurois Sheiru B'Soif Shnasar Boim L'Shus B'nei Yisrael B'Midbar. V'ilu Parshas Masei Paisachas B'Masei B'nei Yisrael V'Me'ein Sikum Shel HaMasois HaMurois B'hem Mitoch HaSforim Shmois V'Yikr B'Midbar HaMakifim Skol HaBoim HaShonim B'Midbar. So therefore it's two separate ideas, two separate things. So how do you combine them when the whole ideas of the parshas are different? So that's why the Rebbe in the Sikha is going to explain by analyzing and looking at the meaning of the word matos and the meaning of the word masei, we could find how they are separate and also how they're connected with each other. Dalet. Hu chayusoi shall noisei Hashem, of the one that has that name. V'roim is l'toichnoi. V'kachu gam b'shemes ha-parsha is toichna pnimi shal ha-parsha kula ramuz b'shma. This is something that the Rebbe, like we said before, always emphasizes. Binyaneinu toichna shal parshas matos ramuz b'shma l'fi minig Yisrael matos, because that's the way it's called. Even though the Rebbe brings in the footnote that the Rambam, the Torah, calls it actually Roshei HaMatos or Ein L'Roshei HaMatos, but L'Poyel, Minig Yisrael, he says that we call it Matos. The Kach Gam L'Gabe Parshas Masei, that the idea is hinted in the word Masei. Hezber L'Kachu Kayomim Shnei Te'arim L'Bnei Yisrael Kishvotim. There's Shvotim v'Matos. Hevdol B'neihem Movim B'toich Mashmusam B'Moshel. Shevet Hu Onav Shadai Rach. It's still connected to the tree, so still it's moist inside. It's still soft. V'ilu Mate Hu Makol Kosher V'Chazak. And the Rebbe says the reason for this is because one is connected and one is cut off. Hasibul Lehevdol Zehi Shevet Hu Onav Hayonik Adayim Min Ha'ilon U'Lefa'amim Adayim Mechubar Elav. It looks like not every time he says, but Al Kaponim it's still soft. V'Lachein Hu Ra'anon V'Rach. It's still moist. Ve'ilu hamata noitzer davke kashara onof nichras ve'ene yonik min ha'ilon v'lachein hu kasher. So now we find this is what the Shvatim are called, Roshei HaMatos, and also they're called Shvatim. So Klal Yisrael are either called Matos or called Shvatim. Each name indicates something else. Doim elakach ha'hevdol ben shnei ha'toyrim anal lam Yisrael. Hein ha-musik shvatim v'hein ha-musik matos mabiyim es ha-uvda shemekoylam shal neshomas Yisrael hu b'shoyrish vil ilon shal lakus. What's known in Kabbalah, or in the Lashon of the Alter Rebbe, ilona de la'ela, the ilon shal ha'mailon. Beremez ha-toyar shvatim moira al neshama kashir mechuberes lalakus begoli. Just like a shevet is still connected to the tree. Kasher he dvuka leilon de leilon, or boyfin klali moira hatoyar al neshama kasher he nimtzas lamaila bebitul v'dvekes masmid lalakus. Ilu Matos Metayres b'nei Yisrael kasher einam kshurim begoli al hamakar dveikusam belakus einana gluya u'ba'ofen klali moira hatoyar al haneshama kasher yiredes lamata lagufen afsha bahamis v'nasis minutekes kiviyachol milana le'leilam. So essentially, the idea of a mata shows on the yerida of the neshama. When the neshama is yored lamata, we call it a mata. Kach roimes gam shema parsha matas liyeridas neshamas Yisrael va'afichosam ledavar megusham umenutik min hamakar. In the meantime, the word matas is a negative thing. Soon the Rebbe is going to take this very negative thing and turn it around and make it into a davar chiyuvi. L'umazois mashmos Hashem Masei hisrachkos muchletes min hamakim hakoidim v'iskarvus la'eretz hakodesh l'makim na'il yoser. Just like begashmis, what's the Masei? The Yidden left Mitzrayim to go to Eretz Yisrael. Mitzrayim is the lowest place, Eretz Haaretz, and from Eretz Haaretz they are going to Eretz Yisrael, to Eretz HaKodesh. So Masei is the opposite of what Mata stands for. Mata stands for being disconnected from Elikus. Masei shows on the travels, the journeying to Elikus. Ba'avodas Hashem hakavana hi l'nasiya va'alicha she'ela magia neshama be'emtzos yiridasa lamata ba'ofen shel matos. Once you have the state where the neshama is a mata, it came down here. Now there's what to travel. If it would be above, if it would be in a state of a shevet, there would be no masei. It's already in a place of kedusha. Once it comes down here, it's matos. So then you have the masei. Here the Rebbe adds something more. Not just it's going back, then you didn't gain anything. It's going down to go back. What type of gain? But every Yidid does tzarech aliyah. So the fact that it became a mata, it became disconnected from its source, it was cut off from the ilan, was that its travels, its masay should be much higher and reach a higher level than before even. Like it says, that the Navi was said that he is a traveler, being that he's in a neshama in a guf, so that's why he's a traveler. The malachim above are considered oimd, and so also the neshamas above are considered standing in one place. Because even though it's serving the Eibishter, it has ava and yira, ki avidosa ba'avas Hashem v'yirasa hi mugbelas v'gam kasher hi oila l'darga gavoya yoser in Gan Eden, in the highest levels, yadayin lo yisrachka l'chalutim ha'amoda ha'koidim v'lachein nikra zois amida. Let's say, for example, you have a person that's in prison, or you have a person, or you have, let's not talk about a person, let's talk about a dog. You train a dog to a fence or whatever, to a tree. So it's walking, but is it really going anywhere? No, it's just going in circles. It's not going anywhere. The same thing, a person could be in a prison cell, and he's walking around the prison yard. Is he going? He's not a goer. He's like standing in the same place. He's like standing still. If an neshama's avoid is in such a type of way where it's mugbal, where it's limited, he's not really going outside of himself, so then he's considered oimid. And this, just like the malach, Avu b'emtzos yiridas lamata beguf nefsha b'amis v'b'chinas matos v'kasher b'emtzosam hi makiyam Torah mitzvos, which is chachmas yiritzayin shal kadosh baruch hu hi magia lemasei nasis lemahalach nailis be'ein aroich al dargasa lifnekein b'yoysa l'mayl. So that's the general meaning of matos and the general idea of masei. Oisei kach inyan b'ofen klali shiridas haneshama remuzah b'parshas matos v'aschar olah b'parshas masei. Now the Rebbe is going to say both the yerida and the schar you could find in matos and masei. Ach beprotis yoyser remuzas gam yeridas haneshama v'gam avedasa haschar v'aliyah hein b'parshas matos v'hein b'parshas masei kid lahalon. Really, the Rebbe is going to say like three things. He's going to talk about yerida, he's going to talk about avoida, and he's going to talk about schar, and all these three things, how they're found in the name of Matos Masei. Hakoishi v'achoizek shel Matos einoi moire rak al nituk haneshama malakus, ela gam al toikfo shel ha'avoda shetzricha lizbatzei de am Yisrael lamata. A stick is hard. It's tough. It stands strong. It doesn't bend. It will stand and hold its position and not move. Kidei lizgaber al oitzmas hanefesh habamis v'haguf shel ha'olam achlal, yesh lamid betoikif shel mata. Makol chozak. Ein lisragish al lisgaber al kol alamas v'estedim. So mata, instead of what we started talking about mata, it's a negative, it's torn away from the tree, that's the neshama down here below. Mata is a positive. Davke down here below, it stands strong. V'kasher Yehudi mekayim es avidosa b'toyra mitzvahs lamata ba'ois. V'eina nivel mekol estedim. So then, the reward that comes about it is also the same. Harigam schori b'chinas mata, v'nitvasav l'neshama koyach mishorsha me'eson shebeneshama. The eson is that nekudas hayadus, the hard essence, the koishi and chayzik of the neshama itself, that's beyond seder ishtalshlus, becomes revealed in the person when he stands strong in his avodah. When he's like a mata that's strong in his avodah. So in other words, you don't have to wait till Masei. We said before, when it's Matos, it goes down, so then it reaches the Masei traveling. The word Mata itself already shows its schar. You have the hardness, the strength of the neshama becomes revealed. Masei Lashon Rabbi, Meroim is gam lemasa neshama melmaylo lemata. Before, when we spoke about Masei, so we said Matos is weight gets separated from the tree. That's the neshama coming down here. Masei is the travel of the neshama to go up Lamaila, to be connected to Kedusha. The Rebbe over here introduces that Masei also includes the neshama coming down here. Gam lekach shetzricha lizbatzei de Yisrael lamata avoida v'derech shel masa v'aliyah midarga ledarga v'gam aschar shaneshama mekabel sal kach hu masei salusa ibeifn shalicha. So you have three things again, like I said before. Masei is the traveling of the neshama down here. Masei is in a way that how does he do his avoida? He does his avoida in a way of traveling. And also, his schar of the avodah is in the way that he gets to halicha, an amazing type of aliyah shaloi ba'erach. Oizvav. Lefi amar le'el, moving ha'kesher ben parshas matis u'masi l'bein ha'mitzorim. Ki yumam shal inyonim ha'lolu shal matis u'masi. Yeridas ha'neshama l'matam, v'tafkido l'vatzeas avodos v'toikiv chulu, v'chein aschar. Again, all three things he says over here. Hu be'ikir bizman ha'golus, be'bein ha'mitzorim. Bein HaMetzarim is the time that shows us about Golus. It points out the fact that we're in Golus. V'loi kol kach be'etzem ridas lamata. Even though beforehand we were talking about the neshama coming down here below, becomes a mata, and it has a travel that is going down here below, and through that it goes upwards. That's not the true Yerida of the neshama. The true Yerida of the neshama is in the time of Golus. Bizman abayis kasher asor nisim nasol avseinu beis hamigdash kishero Yisrael v'shama lakus begolu v'lachein hoy tamad v'bitl v'dveiksel lakus kederach shabal lirois kach bal lirois. So there was a gilu lakus, and the yid was nischaber with the Eibishter. V'avidasam hoy sabav v'yirel lakus. Harei al kach, such a situation, the yid in the times of the beis hamigdash, yafshar loyma shahoyu kematos minutakim and ha'ilon el kishevet. Kshurim l'shoyrish v'gufa ilah. V'lachein lo yhoy zekukim l'toykif miyuchad k'dei l'kaimus avodas ha'toyra ha'mitzvahs u'muvim mekach shegam le'nis gala eson shem neshama. We said before, when is the powerful eson part of neshama become revealed? When I'm like a stick, when I'm like a mata. But in the times of the Beis HaMikdash, I don't need to be like a mata to be able to stand strong in doing mitzvahs. So therefore the eson of the neshama is also not revealed. Avu b'zman Golus kasher alakus eidana niris nishmaske b'zman abayis kayomim alamas v'steirim rabim kol kach l'alakus v'oz Yisrael hem kimatois dveikusam l'alakus ein agluya. There's no nisim, there's no revealed inyonim of alakus. Oz tzrichim hem legalois ba'atzmam oitzma rabba yosem kedei lizgaber ala afroas ba'avoidas ha'toyra ha'mitzvos ubemyuchad not just to be able to overcome these things, but like the Rebbe always emphasizes, all these inyanim are here, so we should change them. We should transform them. And to do that, we need to be like a mata. After doing an avodah like a mata, so the third thing, the schar, is also ba'ofen shel matos. Toikif etzem haneshama mizgala yoser masher bezman habayis ve'yoser masher b'yoser haneshama l'mayla v'chol zois kimasei halicha, going so very high. The Rebbe says a geschmack of word in Ha'ara 44. If you remember, I mentioned in passing that there is some, the Rambam and the Tur calls this parsha Rosh Hamatas. Davke bezman ha'achronim, the Rebbe says, we call it matos. Because in previous doiras, such type of levels were shaykh only to Rosh Hamatas. Now, when the darkness of the Golus is so strong, every one of us has this koyach of being a mata, has this koyach of revealing the etzem of the neshama. And the Rebbe goes into like these three different things that we said about Yerida and Avodah and Schar. Anyway, you also have all these three different things. Oizai, Kolo Amar Le'il, Kayim beParshas Matos Masei, Gam b'fnei atzmam, kisha einon mechubaris. Avo b'roi vashonim, kasher Matos Masei mechubaris, yesh toisefes b'yira u'b'nesinas koyach, shekol achas mehen mashpia al acheres. Matos on Masei and Masei al Matos. Koloimar. Oz nitten koyach miyuchad, she'avoida tia nailis yoser, than if you would have Matos alone or Masei alone. A person could think, if the avodah is higher, so it's going to be a more difficult avodah. So the Rebbe says just the opposite. By Matos Masei coming together, so then we have a greater and stronger nesinas koyach that makes it easier for us than in a year when the Matos Masei are separate. The Matos b'yerida b'zman hagolus, mudgish ezel masei she'HaKadosh Baruch Hu sider zois kach kemasois b'midbar kipshutam she'hoyu al pi Hashem Yisrael v'zeh moisef oiz la'avoda b'golus. When Matos and Masei come together, so now I'm looking like this. It's Matos, right? I am separated from the Eibishter. I came down here, but if I know that it's a Masei, it's al pi Hashem Yachanu, the reason I am down here is because this is something that the Eibishter sent me here for. In the Matos, I feel the Masei, so then it becomes much, much easier to accomplish what I have to accomplish. A friend of mine, when I left Los Angeles, told me that there's a word of the Frierdiker Rebbe, wo me geht, das ist nicht toll in uns. Aber was me tut dorten, das. Where you go is not dependent on us. Hashem tzaddik ever kanon. But what you do when you get there, that depends on us. But the point is, the Eibishter al pi Hashem Yachnu. The Eibishter is the one that sent me here. If the Eibishter is the one that sent me here, so that means I can do it, and I have the koiches for it, even while being in a state of matis. Kach gam ha'avodah shel matis, kasher b'yachad im masei, neisenes ha'toira koyach miyuchad lekach, shekol pu'ulas ha'yehudi b'zman ha'golos tiyena ba'otzman shel matis u'ba'ofen shel masei. His alus acher his alus b'toikev shel matis. Whenever I'm traveling, I have this powerful level of matis. The kach gam bina shlishi shel matis. Remember, we're talking about yerida, avoida, and the third thing is schar. Toikve shel shoyrish haneshama mizgala ba'avoida shel matis u'ba'ofen shel masei. Ke shoyrish na'ale b'yoser. Ad shel besoif zoi aliyah magia le'otzma rabba yoser mitoikev shoyrish haneshama. The shoyrish haneshama is where it came from. This is a traveling, this is a masei, even higher than where the neshama came from. Why is that? Shari bezman hagolus mesal haneshama le'yoser mekach le'lekushi b'li gvul. Not the way the neshama was above, that we said before, it was oimdim, it wasn't the way of bli gvul, it was only mugbal, but now through masei it travels to the level of bli gvul. Ad lishta'ova begufa the malka, to become joined with the Eibishter himself. She misachedes kiviyachol matzmus yishal kadosh baruch hu. And then the Rebbe adds one more point. Sometimes we can say, okay, now I'm working hard, but the schar will be later. When you have Matos Masei mechubarim, that means I have the Masei b'shas ma'isa of the Matos. U'meidach ha-Masei as-schar v'halicha shebeneshama einam b'zman nifred. Kim boim yachad im ha-Matos, keloimar. Gam kasher ha-Yehudi nimtza kam lamata meskemes by halicha v'aliyah. At the end of the Sikha, the Rebbe is going to say, or towards the end, the Rebbe is going to say an amazing thing, how like, he's going to talk about like the highest levels, that usually these highest levels is like Moshiach's time type of level, or when a person leaves this world type of level, but he's going to bring this in again and say, no, it's possible for us to experience this here, now, in the time of Golus, Neshomoh beguf. Lefi zeh, yuven ha-kesher shebein siruf Matos Masei, lebein kriyas parshas Pinchas bebein ha-mitzarim, ulefamim gam parshas Balak ki bekriyas Shanazu, where Shivasa B'Tammuz was on Shabbos. Shari lechoyra misareres ha-shayla, keitzad niten lidresh mi-Yehudi shebechol Masei yamid ba'oiz shel Matos, had yeshoyni b'masoisim shel Yehudi v'meichayav. The Baal Shem Tov says that the 42 Masois of the Yid in the Midbar, every single Yid throughout his life goes through 42 Masois. Just like Yid without a Mitzrayim as the first Masa, the same thing. A baby is born, they're going out of a Meitzer. They're going out of a constrained imprisonment. They're going out to freedom when they're born. And the Baal Shem Tov says the entire life he goes through the 42 Masois. Now, if we look at our lives, every human being, every person, every stage in their life, they're different. They have aliyahs, they have yeridas. So he says, how could it be matis? Matis means strong, hard, consistent. Yesh aliyahs v'yeridas, v'yimichel neshtanis, min hakotz al hakotz. Omnam, kashin imtzoyim, b'vayisum meramses, hayitzim mitzrayim, shoysa b'yod rama le'ene kol mitzrayim. Obviously, we're going to be on a high level. We experienced the Holocaust. The Eibusher took us out of Mitzrayim. Oy b'masa shehovel midbar Sinai. Nitin lahavin she'az efshel lidresh toikev hanitzrach lahastrals ba'avoida. But the Masois in the Midbar were not just these positive things. There was also some negative things. Ach keitzad nitin lidresh miyehudi toikev gazeb. Shu b'masa k'meirisma al shem lashon hara shel maraglim. Rashi brings down over there from a pasuk. Risma is in the word roisim, these type of gachle risamim, these burning coals from that would burn the tongue from Lashon Hara. Oy be'evel hashitim, which was the place where there was the chet of Baal Poir, akasher lechet Poir. So how can you expect this to be that same toikev, that same matter all the time? Al kach hatshuvi parshas Pinchas. So we have magdim refula makkah. Before you come to Matos, you have Pinchas. What was Pinchas about? Mesiras Nefesh. It's my understanding, my appreciation, it's my avodah. Why? It's not going to be the same. Since I'm mugbal, so there's differences. Today I'm like this, tomorrow I'm like that. Who is Yatzev b'Mesiras Nefesh neged Kol Yisrael. He was literally in danger of losing his life. Kasher Kayemes Eitzal Yehudi Mesiras Nefesh, which means Yitzia me'Metzias Shaloi. Hari Oz Ein Shoini Ben Masa LaMasa V'Tomid Kiyum Tzivui Hashem Hu Ba'os Toikev. Because it's not about me. When my Torah mitzvah is about me, so there's different me's. When it's totally about Hashem, Mesiras Nefesh, it's not me. Today, tomorrow, the day after, it's all the same. Bekach muvon sheshlei mesirufan shel Matos Masei kayemes rak yeshekoyrim gam parshas Pinchas betkufa zu shel bein hamitzarim, because that gives us the strength to be able to have that. Ubemiyuchad yeshekoyrim gam parshas Balak shebesoifa mesuper ma'isa Mesiras Nefesh aloi. Parshas Pinchas is only told about what happened because of Mesiras Nefesh. Parshas Balak actually tells the story of what he did with his Mesiras Nefesh. That the person in all of his travels, in all of his trips, in all of his masois, he should be as strong as a mata. The Rebbe also brings down that this is also Behegdim was we have also Yud Beis Yud Gimel Tammuz where we had the Mesiras Nefesh of the Frierdiker Rebbe as well. That's also to help us be able to do the avodah of Matos Masei. That's why in these generations it was revealed the Yom Tov of Yud Beis Yud Gimel Tammuz. Oistes. B'doime l'kach kayem shayla al chiburin shel Matos Masei be'inyan aschar. Keitzad yichoyla haneshama b'yimiuchad beridat al Mato be'bein ha-mitzarim shel ha-Golus. Lagia l'masei la'oitzma gedoyla kol kach af yoyser me'mamoda b'shorish haneshama l'mayla. Yes, okay. Keitzad yachol matzav kazel lahoyres haneshama kishi bedarges matis lamata b'zman ha-Golus. How is it possible for me down here when I am disconnected, the original taich of mata, disconnected from my source, and not just I'm disconnected like in the time of Golus. I should have such a gilui. V'lechura nemar al avodas b'chol meidecha she'ela magian nesham b'rid tolamata b'myuchad b'zman ha-Golus she'b'moison roim. It says that when did they reach this type of gilui after they pass away? La'achar zichu chaguf and afshabamis b'avodas eskafki v'safka avaloi b'chayeyim. So how could it be that we're saying we're going to have this now? In the Matos, we're going to have the Masei we said before. The Masei is already there in the Matos. Gamal kach parshas Pinchas hanikras lefneizer bein ha-mitzorim mitshuvam. Kol analhu kisha adam oived Hashem b'yoyser b'mtziusi. Kach shagam b'dargosei hagavoya b'yoyser adayin hu mugbal kenivra, and as a mugbal he can only reach so high. Avol kishavidosi b'mesiras nefesh lahepech mitivoi ozu mishtachrer memigbalos of kenivra va'afes migbalos haneshama b'shoyre shorsha she becholzos mitzias atzmis. It's something independent. It's something that's not the Eibishter still. V'kach hu misached im atzmusi shel Hashem through the mesiras nefesh v'ruach toshva l'kim asher nasan. Aide avoida zu shel mesiras nefesh mamoshis, which was what Pinchas had, nasa zichuch haguf v'nefesh habahamis ulefichach yechoyla liskayim etz haneshama gam b'yoyser lamata beguf begolus aliyah biltum begbolus, which is the concept of Masei that we were talking about before. Shaleyan magia haneshama aide avoidasa. Again, this is all by going out of myself, going out of my box, going out of my limitations. Yud kemuskel le'el yesh inyan miyuchad noisef kasher matas u'masei mechubaris chal leitim kibishana zu yema rishon b'mei ben ha-mitzarim shivasar b'tammuz v'chein yema achron tisha b'av b'shabbos. But Parshas Bala goes back on the shivasar b'tammuz. Ha-hezber lakach v'akesher la-hezber ha-koydem al tziruf matas u'masei. What's the connection that shivasar b'tammuz comes out on a Shabbos? What does it have to do with this idea that matas and masei are together? Hakavona ha'ikris b'yiridas haneshama lamata b'miyuchad b'golus b'bchinas matasi k'divri ad morazokim b'tanya sh'haneshama atzma ain't tzricha tikkun klal. The neshama is fine. The neshama is perfect. Ela yarda k'dei l'sakin v'saguf v'nefshabamis v'eschelka ha'shayich la meklal s'olam hazim. Every person has their name written on it, what part of the world they're supposed to be mavar. The fact when if I'm served a piece of chicken, that chicken has my name on it. That chicken was meant by me from Sheshis Mei Bereishis to be mavar that piece of chicken. I don't know if we should be trading pieces, like somebody likes a thigh, he doesn't like this. Because that chicken, the reason why it landed on my plate is because that's my birr. Bekach moving. Shegam ikar avoida ba'ois shel matis v'chein haschar ha'amiti tziruf matis u'masi ba'avoida l'mata Eina rak is gabras haneshama ala hasteidim shel haguf v'nefshabamis v'alchosh chagolus ela beikir avoidas iskafia v'ishapcha shel nefshabamis, and not just nefshabamis v'shel choshech hagolus shemechutzala. That's the purpose. Sharei ha'oiz b'neshama b'rir talamata, the idea of the mata, v'oiz ha'meshava b'emtsois ha'steidim shel nefshabamis v'oilam, that it reaches this greater strength, that becomes revealed how it's as strong as a mata. Ein noy chidush ki haneshama yalakus ulefichach ein negrames b'emtsousei aliyah masei mushlemes, when you have that just sitting there and not being used. Ach, כשמשתמשים במטס בתויקב, כדי להכניע ולהפך הנפש הבאמיס לטויב. להיפך מטבעם, שהידי כך נפסד כל צורוסם. The entire form of nefesh habamis becomes completely lost. ובמיוחד באמצעות הסהפכה של חושך הגולוס. אז נגרמס עלייה בלתי מוגבלת, מושלמת, גם בנפש הלקיס. The nefesh הלקיס reaches something it wouldn't be able to reach ordinarily. באופן של בכל מועדיך, יויסר מהמועד של הנפש הלקיס, כי כך מסעכד היהודי מעצמוסי יסברך כביכול. There is the nefesh halakis' level, and through the nefesh habamis he reaches even higher, that he connects with atzmus itself, which the nefesh halakis on its own would not have had. The fees and muvenos mashmois chalusi shivos betamuz hayom harishon shel bein hamitzarim b'Shabbos parshas Bolek. Tachlis yimei bein hamitzarim hi v'afachti evlam l'sosin. Yemei ataynes atzmam yehafchol l'sosin l'simcha. Not just to get rid of the fast days. It's not just going to be when Moshiach comes, we're not going to have the fast days. But the point is, and the whole reason for it is, to take the fast days and make them into days of simcha. Yeshloima shedavar zeh ramuz b'kach shakadosh baruch hu herel l'navi Yirmiyahu makal shokid, an almond branch. Ki shoykid on the aldvarei la'asoyse, it's a play on words. Shkedim and shoykid in the aldvarei is connected. Shezel kedivir chazal remez l'chaf alf yimei bein hamitzarim b'diyu kepri hashokid, like almonds shemeshas chanitasi ad gmar bishuli esra v'echad yom. It takes 21 days till it's ripe. ובכך רמז הקדוש ברוך הוא, לא רק להיפך הטוב, אלא בעיקר לכוונס העניין שמקל שוקד מסד מלוסי. Here we see again the Rebbe turning it around. Every single time we talk about makal shoked, we're saying 21 days from when the walls of Yerushalayim were broken till the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash. It's going to take 21 days fast. It's going to be a fast destruction. Just like the shkedim grow very fast. Comes the Rebbe and says, let's turn it around. Let's find the good in this. The makal shoked is something, a positive message. When there was the argument between Aaron and the other Messiah Shvatim, and they each put out their matos around the oil moed, why was Aaron's matos specifically? Why was it Vayifrach Shkedim? Why was it Dafke Shkedim? Because Shkedim shows on the mehirus of a bracha. So we see the idea of Shkedim has also the positive connotation that brachas and ashpahs come down very powerfully and very quickly. So now, Kishashivasa B'Tammuz V'Tisha B'Av Cholim B'Shabbos Haridoicha Shabbos Satainis ובנויס ולקח יפחס as hayom shel bein hamitzarim l'yom shemitzvah l'samcha l'angoi. Again, me'ain, what's going to be when Moshiach comes, that these very days are going to be days of rejoicing. It's almost like the same thing. Shavuot B'Tammuz is now a happy day. This Tisha B'Av is going to be a happy day, just like Mashiach's times, that Shavuot B'Tammuz is going to be a happy day, and Tisha B'Av is a happy day. B'doima le'inin v'afachti evlo musachtos. B'miyuchad kasher zeu toichen yom haShabbos b'klal to be b'simcha kenam v'toras koyanim al mizmor shir yom haShabbos. Why do we say mizmor shir yom haShabbos on Shabbos? Liyom haShabbos actually does not mean to the Shabbos day. Liyom haShabbos means to the day when it will be mashbis mazikim in ha'olam when Mashiach comes, that all mazikim will be stopped from this world. V'atzemach tzedek masber zois sheshleimus haShabbos hi. When you say mashbis, it could mean it stops. But the Tzemach Tzedek says the ultimate thing is hafichas hamazikim l'toiv. Like it says that a child will play around with a snake. It's not just that the snake won't hurt. It becomes a plaything for the child. It becomes something that's transformed into something good. Kach hayagam b'Shabbos b'tchilas habriya, that choshech was turned over to good. There was no night on Friday night, because the night was also day. Just like it says about Mashiach's times, Laila kayom yoyer. Kiloymar shleimus haShabbos hu inay sapcha shel bein hamitzarim b'goluim. K'fi she'inyan b'tchilas habriya ha'isa afichas choshech Laila la'oyer v'Laila kayom yoyer, like it says about Mashiach's times. Leheipach min ha'golus hu bein hamitzarim ha'hoifchim yom la'Laila. That's chas shalom fakert. The bein hamitzarim take it the opposite. Kach yoytze, kasher shivasa batamas, reishes bein hamitzarim chal b'Shabbos, misracheshes hakdomas refuah l'makah shel bein hamitzarim, hayamim nefachim miyad b'tchilasam. You have years where you have Shabbos and bein hamitzarim, so you started off sad, but then you had Shabbos in the middle. Here, right away, the first day of the bein hamitzarim, you right away get to the message, you right away get to the point. It's Shabbos. It's about hafichas evlam l'sasam. Zeu mekel as avodas ha'adam bebein hamitzarim, avodas shel Matos Masei, v'tzirufam biyachad, k'muzber le'el ba'afichas nefesh ha'bamis v'agolus. It makes it easier for us. Kach gam et ha'parsha b'toyra, parshas balog, shetoichna hu birchis bilam, she'oya ba'ofen she'v'lo'yava Hashem Elokim l'shmoel bilam v'yafach Hashem Elokecha l'chos ha'klal l'vracha, which is a very interesting thing. It's not just he stopped Bilam from saying klolos, and it's not just that Bilam said brachas instead of klolos, but like Rashi brings down that from the brachas that Bilam said, you knew what type of klolos he had in mind. Which means that the very klola itself that he was going to say became now a bracha. Again, it's hapcha. Again, turning over the darkness to light, like Moshiach's times. Who was the one that did it? It could have been Bilam should have wanted to say klolos, and Moshe would have instead said brachas. It wasn't that way. Bilam himself, the shayrish, the etzem of klippa, like as soon as you say, the total opposite of Moshe Rabbeinu was the one that brought out the brachas. Shayis adavke b'mtzos Bilam, hanigudi shel Moshe, sheyahepech min hakdusha. V'oid siyum nevuasai. What was the conclusion of nevuas Bilam? Hayal achres hayamim. Oid es hagulay dem Moshiach tzedkeinu kehaz ba'arambam sheyotzis Yisrael min hagolus and bein hamitzarim lachalutim totally. Kasher kol inyanim alalu mitztarfim b'yachid. You have Matos Masei mechubaros. Ulefichach nikras parshas Pinchas bein hamitzarim. U'emyuchat kishetchils bein hamitzarim hi b'Shabbos parshas Balak. Hare muchash yoser ha'inyan shal yehavchu yom elu l'sasnu l'simcha mimakel ha'shakid titzmach hashkida l'toiva. Not the way how we always talk about shkidas ha'geula, which the Chazal say shakadati lahachnis bana el Eretz Yisrael miyad. It's actually in the beginning of Medrash Eicha. It says this line. The Medrash on Eicha is the negative. B'shayt echad, b'rig echad, ti agulay de Moshiach tzedkeinu l'matam asar t'fachim.